Thank you. Super excited to be here, talk to a room of entrepreneurs. We consider ourselves also entrepreneurs at a very entrepreneurial business. Paul Miller to my right and Eric Lindberg, both we would call ourselves lifers at Grocery Outlet. I think I started when we were about 85 stores. Paul started a little after that or about the same time. And so we're going to tell you the story today, keep it kind of short. Hopefully we have a short video that will come up and give you sort of an intro through the stores and kind of tell you what we do. And then we're going to stay around this afternoon, copious drinks outside and tell you stories and hopefully answer some questions and be of some use. Raise your hand if you've heard of Grocery Outlet. All right, that makes me feel better. Raise your hand if you have the courage, if you've sold Grocery Outlet. Okay, so a few of you, thank you. Interesting business. I'll just walk through the first page here. A little bit about our story. Based in San Francisco, our founder, Jim Reed, way back in 1946, figured out two things: excess inventory and excess retail space. Put the two together in, I think, what would be known as, although he never took claim to it, the first retail discount business selling opportunistic product. If you wanted to know what we do, you just say we're the TJ Maxx of grocery, right? And that kind of says it all. We've been working on this concept really hard for the last, call it 75 years. And today are about 450 locations. We'll do about $3.5 billion, a little bit more than that this year. That's a last year figure. But really, to know about this business, know about two things. One, we buy opportunistically. We still buy about 50% of our inventory from manufacturers like yourselves, large, small, international, all over in every category you can imagine inside the store, including HBC and general merchandise. We sell it at a discount because we buy it at a discount because it has some sort of resume because it can't go to tier one retail. We work out those deals, put it in front of the customer at a 40% savings, and repeat the process as often as possible. The second thing that's very unique, and I think something that you all will love, is we put into the stores, not managers, but we put owners. We generally hire someone from the community-based, some sort of partnership, either a couple, that's a loose definition, but a lot of them are husbands and wives. A lot of them are partners. We put them into business. They come from retail, usually have 15, 20 years managing a grocery store or a Walmart or a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's or some retail, and they get into partnership with us. We give them the buying framework, we give them the distribution, the marketing, the setup of the store, and they get a $5, $10, $15, $20 million business that they share the profits on the four-wall unit 50-50 with us. The cost of that business is about $100,000. If you don't have it, we'll lend it to you. And it's an amazing model. Amazing because what we've done is gone the opposite way of retail. We're taking out, there's not a whole lot of AI in our business. We're giving them the community-based decision-making to get closest to the customer on decisions that are best for their community. We ask them to get involved, they do, and they're really, really successful entrepreneurs in their town. So that's just a little primer on who Grocery Outlet is. Next slide. Very few retailers have a manufacturer as the first tombstone on their slide deck. That tells you how we've been oriented. We've been thinking about the supplier and how they're going to move their inventory back since 1971. That was sort of the beginning of us making official our contracts with various suppliers. You go through some of the milestones. A lot of them may not be all that interesting to you, but just sort of go up to the upper right. We did take the business public in 2019 after a couple of private equity sessions. Happy to answer any questions about that. 09 and 14 with two great partners. And then really this step is just a journey of how we thought about going from supplier-based to more consumer-based. So we added categories, we added fresh, we added a lot of brands. We were probably selling, when Paul and I started the business, about 1,000 SKUs in the store. We're selling about 6,500. Still very limited assortment, still very small stores. Think Trader Joe's size, very loose merchandising, meaning there's no planogram. What we buy tomorrow might be something that we're putting on the shelf next week, and we may never have that item again. A stat that we like to trot out to people is we sell 5,000 to 6,000 SKUs in the store in any given day, but we track about 125,000 SKUs in a given annual year. So tons and tons of discontinuity. Next slide. Oh, let's try the video. Give you a little look inside the stores. Hopefully this worked. Perfect.
Today, my favorite buy is this box of Kellogg's Apple Jack cereal.
The Halo Top ice cream is top of the list for me.
I'm actually wearing my favorite buy at Grocery Outlet. So this is Mint Mint Chocolate Chip by OPI.
My favorite buy is the Perfect Bar. Grocery Outlet's history, third generation, family run, started by Jim Reed in 1946. An operator model that's expanded into 320 stores in the Western states.
We're a high growth, extreme value retailer of quality name brand consumables and fresh products. We are 100% focused on delivering the best deals and the most amount of savings to our bargain minded customers. We can save them 40% on a basket of items. On some of our items, they're saving 50, 60, 70, up to 80%.
You get this depth of value, but then you get these unexpected finds. So the store is actually very fun to shop, and then delivered by the independent operators, which gives you this really deep connection to the community, an authentic owner in the store that customers get to know.
Across all our stores, 95% of them are independently owned.
The best independent operators are those people that either have roots or want to establish roots in the communities that they operate in. I always like to say where it works best, they could literally be the mayor of the town they operate in. Changes they recognize and they feel when they come into this business is really the autonomy and the independence to operate their stores the way that they think they work best.
It will never be a moment where Grocery Outlet just says, it's your problem, you deal with it. Because your success is their success.
I think people have seen Grocery Outlet mature and grow up over the years. They've seen the evolution of the brand. They've seen us introduce fresh. They've seen us introduce produce, and they've seen us hold on to the values. You know, pricing for us has been the thing that we've been maniacally focused on for years. And so people delight in the unexpected finds, but they rely on the values every day.
We have strong, long-standing supplier relationships. We work through excess inventory. We help them with canceled orders. We help them with manufacturing overruns. We help them with some items that may be near sell-by date. We give them cost recovery. We have a very experienced and tenured buying team. We're extremely fortunate to be working and partnering closely with the companies that we do partner with. We generated $2.3 billion in sales last year. Extremely proud of that. Even more proud of 15 consecutive years of positive same-store sales, continuing to infill our existing markets and then expanding into new markets as well.
I think we're lucky to appeal to a broad range of customers. They're pretty diverse. One thing that's key is they love brands and they love value.
So we don't just have fans, we have super fans and we have brand evangelists. They shop here because it's fun. They don't know what they're gonna find. They find that unexpected deal and they're just so wowed. Either it's the price or it's the fact that we have an item. What connects all of them are four really key things for us that make them Grocery Outlet shoppers. And that is, they all say they want to eat organic. They all can be motivated to impulse buy, which is really important for us because we want them going down every aisle and really excited about what they're going to find. They all think they're influencers in their circles, whether it's social media or personally in their one-on-one relationships. People go to them for advice. People ask them, what's your latest recipe? Where do you shop? And the fourth thing, which is the most key thing for Grocery Outlet, is that brand is king to these segments.
The most special thing Grocery Outlet has, it's a culture of family. It's a culture of hard work, performance. It's a culture of integrity and not taking ourselves too seriously. We all win.
Not just that the prices are so good and the produce is so fresh, but it's the people too.
And the selection, the variety, the adventure, and the prices. I'm a little embarrassed to say that I have fun grocery shopping, but yes, I have fun.
Don't be embarrassed.
Our brand promise is to wow our customers every single day. We know we do that because of the strong affinity our customers have for us and the strong loyalty our customers have. And we will continue to do that as we look to grow into the future.
Grocery Outlet, bargain market.
Hopefully we can have you singing that by the end of the day. A little history on sales. You know, you get sort of a sense for the inside of the store. That was, I think, 2019, 2.3. So pretty rapid growth. We are one of the only retailers, I think, that can claim solid comp store sales positivity with the exception of 1 year. You can see the yellow, or you can see 2021 following COVID year was kind of an odd year, but 18 of the last 19 years, which we've always been really, really proud of, figuring out how to grow and just make sure we get the comp store sales growth, which is so important to retail today. Next slide. We look at this and say we're just getting started, 450 stores. We think the US has potential for over 4,000 or 5,000. We've got a plan for 10% growth. We are essentially a regional going national retailer. We have a lot of stores on the West Coast. We've got sort of the yellow states or sort of expansion opportunities. We've got, Paul, about 35 in the Mid-Atlantic with plans to be up close to 50 by the end of the year. That represents sort of in and around Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, New York, New Jersey, about a 300 store opportunity. Think about the way Trader Joe's grew back in the 90s, very similar by coastal, West Coast dominant, and then move over to the East Coast and then start growing from there. Very similar to the path that we think we'll take. We can get into boxes that are 9,000 square feet. We can get in boxes that are 30,000 square feet and everything in between. It's really more about, is it the place where people are going to come find a lot of value and appreciate what we have to offer. Recent sales, last 12 months. This is just to show that, Grocery Outlet, the way we track, we're definitely inflecting. You ought to look at this and say there's something going on afoot in the economy. We're getting both ring basket build and we're getting customer count build. Probably a little bit more impressive. A lot of people have positive sales growth, but they're losing their basket and they're losing customer count, where they're gaining customer count or they're gaining basket, not customer count. We actually have really positive traction. So people are looking for value, finding us a little bit more often. We're seeing, Paul and I were doing the math at lunch, we're seeing about 1.8 million to 2 million customers a week. So for you all and thinking about brands and how you get into retailers where you can see lots of eyeballs, this is an opportunity. We'll talk a little bit about that at the Q&A, and certainly Paul hit that on some of the strategies that you might think about getting into Grocery Outlet and getting some access to our customers. I think that's my last slide. I'm going to hand it over to Paul to tell you a little bit more about the buying model. So thanks.
All right, thanks, Eric. Nice job. Thank you. All right, so we often refer to the secret sauce or the two most important pillars of the business. And we think the way we buy and the way we sell are those two pillars. I'm going to talk a slide about each of them, but I'll start with the buying side of it. Like Eric said, I think when we had 1,000 SKUs back in the 70s, we were very supplier oriented. We were not consumer oriented. We were more focused on how could we solve excess inventory problems for the supplier. Matter of fact, that's why we got into frozen. That's why we got into refrigerated. It wasn't because the consumer necessarily was looking for it. It was because our supplier partners asked us to get into those businesses. So opportunistic business models alive and well today. You can kind of split this in half. We're about 50% opportunistic and 50%, we refer to it as MTO, but just think about it as everyday turn goods. The simple product to understand is milk, sugar, flours. It's anything where consumer demand outpaces or opportunistic supply, right? So I'm going to stay on the left side of the page, your left side of the page for a second. This is what makes us different. We are still supplier focused. We want to get to know your business. We want to get to know the nuances of your business. And we want to get to know how we can partner with you and be the most efficient solution for any sort of inventory solution that you may be looking for, up to and including maybe it's just extra capacity or meeting minimum order quantities, which I'll talk about in a second. That's our differentiator. That's how we can show value. You think about showing value against a Winco or a really tough competitor, Walmart or a really tough competitor like Winco in our market. The only advantage we have from a buying standpoint is the way we buy. So buying these excess inventories allows us that advantage. And then everyday assortment, we're definitely evolving. The easy ones, again, to think about are milk, sugar, flour. We're in the categories at this point. We're adding items that we think are incremental and accretive to the categories. We think it's built customer frequency over the years. You see the traffic pickup, the average store volume definitely has grown by quite a bit. And whenever we share that, the first question we're asked by suppliers is, well, how do we do it? How does the pricing work? How would we sell you everyday goods? That's what everybody kind of wants to do, right, initially. And we always say, we work backwards. We don't get to choose the retail. The market dictates the retail to us. We will not, every buyer has a DNA chip in them. They will not sell anything knowingly higher than the marketplace already sells that item for. So we start with the retail and we work our way backwards. If it's a really important item, milk, eggs, we meet the retail, we compress margins to sell the item. If it's less important, we might want to make a little margin, and show a little value, but we're definitely not going to sell anything at above market prices on the everyday side. And Eric, if you could. All right, so that's the way we buy. The way we sell also really unique. Eric hit on it a little bit, and it probably would resonate with this group. These aren't store managers. These are entrepreneurs that own their own $10 to $15 million business. It's a consignment arrangement. We sign the lease, we do all the back end, we find the inventory. They never buy the inventory from us, so it's not like a wholesale arrangement. The inventory is consigned to them after they sell the inventory. We split the margin right down the middle. They've got a few pretty important expenses like labor and utilities and some local marketing, and we have the lease and the cost of goods and the back end costs. But the power of having people that own their own business in their local communities is like no other retailer in the country. You'll feel it if you haven't visited a store. I think somebody was quoted in the video as saying it really works well when the operator could literally be the mayor of the town. They get entrenched in the local community. They understand what's important to that particular community, and they make a difference, a true difference. They all give back. They all donate time. They all donate food. Somebody mentioned food. I think Ryan mentioned food insecurity. That's a big deal for us as well. We raise money corporately, and we raise money at just about every one of the 450 stores today. So invite you into a store. Again, feels like a Trader Joe's, a lot of energy, but with ownership inside the box. So big benefits, right? I think the buyers, we consider ourselves, we're selling a service, quite honestly, first and foremost. We're out. There's lots of options for excess inventory. You can dump it. That's a 4-letter word in our collective industry. You can donate it. There's a lot of great worthy causes out there. There's wholesalers you can sell your brands to that who knows where it ends up. And we think we were the best option for excess inventories because we own and operate our own stores. We own and operate our own distribution facilities. So big differentiator, all 4 dry facilities. Northeast, the Northwest, NorCal, and SoCal are our own facilities. We take possession and distribute ourselves. And then we can do things like, hey, if you're really sensitive to you don't want your brand in the Southern California market because you just got some new distribution and you don't want to disrupt that full revenue relationship that you have with that supplier, we won't sell it in that market. So you can customize whatever solution you'd like us to do with your excess inventory, and we're able to do that. Quick response time. Every buyer has been trained to same-day response. I know you get that from all the retailers you deal with, but laughter, I like that. Yeah, so same-day response, 24-hour POs. That's part of our DNA. So just, I think Eric, you said this at lunch. It costs you nothing, and we're going to hang around for the cocktail party to just test us, throw an item in front of us, throw it in front of the buyer. We'll give you a really quick 24-hour response about what's that item worth to us? What kind of velocity do we think we could get from your item in our stores? Costs you nothing, no item setup forms, takes you 24 hours. So we invite you to do that. Hopefully we can talk a little bit more about that this afternoon. And next slide, Eric. Probably, pretty intuitive, but here's probably the most common reasons why we get inventory. Everything from short-coded, and talk about fast and nimble. I think we sell 50,000 cases of yogurt a week that lands at our warehouses with 12 days or less of code life. That's how fast the supply chain's built to just deal with really short-coded inventory. We sell nothing beyond the code. We take care of your brands. Really, really important to us to maintain that relationship with the customer. Excess inventory, that's an obvious one. Talked a lot about cash flow. This morning, we caught the tail end of that presentation. So just think about if you have capital tied up in inventory that's excess, or maybe you did a special pack for somebody, or a lot of regulation changes more recently over the last 5 or 10 years as label requirements change. We've done a lot of that. So take inventory and turn it into cash before some of those deadlines hit. Discontinued items, that's an obvious one. And then just, Andy, we talked to Andy a little bit about, because you're familiar with this, and I caught your comment about your really profitable business with us. We'll have to talk about pricing at the cocktail party. We do this. We, on the front end, so a lot of back end opportunities, but on the front end, a lot of folks in your same stage of business We realize you're asset light, you don't have facilities, you're going to a co-mans, and there's minimum order quantities. And maybe you're chasing that first Whole Foods order or whatever, whatever retailer you'd like to get into ideally first. A lot of times we can help you get to cash flow neutral, maybe on the excess quantity that first order won't take. So again, just a conversation we'd invite having with you at the cocktail party later this afternoon. And NOSH, a couple slides about NOSH. NOSH is our own internal acronym. We registered this trademark. You can see what it says for natural, organic, specialty, and healthy. Pretty broad descriptor, but it's your world. And if you look at the bar chart, this is a percentage of our business over time that is NOSH. So back in 2015, just 9% of our business was NOSH. And I can tell you today, it's well over 20%. And we'll sniff $4 billion in revenue this year. So think about us as a nearly $1 billion, I'm gonna round up, $1 billion retailer or natural organic retailer that's growing at about a 20% clip with new stores on the horizon. Hopefully that's, if there's one takeaway, think about us as someone at scale that's easy to deal with. And last slide, Eric, just thought it'd be fun to close with this. I'm sure everyone was at the Natural Expo more recently. This is how we think about trade shows like this and your industry. We sent 28 buyers to the show for the entire show. We wrote $13 million, not with a B, with an M, at the show. So buyers are quick, they're nimble. When they know the deal will work in our stores, we write a PO, or the PO gets sent the next day. And we also love to walk the trade show, but we also hosted our 28 buyers hosted a cocktail party, kind of got people up off the floor, a little more intimate setting with suppliers, and told them our story and did some business over a cocktail at the end of the day, and just a little more intimate setting. So we like to be the anti-retailer. We want to be fast, accessible, and oftentimes we host suppliers wherever we're at. So I think that's pretty much everything we've got, unless I missed anything, Eric. But we'd love to open it up for questions, and thank you for having us.
Terrific. We can probably lose the screen now. Thank you. I didn't say explicitly, Eric ran Grocery Outlet for how many years? 17 years. He's now the chairman of the public company, and Paul runs buying and merchandising. And one of the things that's interesting, I was texting with an entrepreneur over the weekend that was struggling to figure out, who to reach for at this retailer and who to reach for at TJX. Well, is it still on your website? All your the buyer contacts? Yes. All right. So that's one of the interesting things about Grocery Outlet. On their website, every one of their buyers are listed. Emails, contact information. So, it's not right for every retail partner, and it's not right for every brand, but I wanted to encourage this group to think about it, both in what we talked about this morning on cash management. Josh, where are you? Where's Josh? Oh, there you are. So, in the course of the case this morning, we talked about your packaging transition. It may not or may not be right for you, but you're talking about, you'll finish your packaging transition in basically a year, 9 months, a year. Could it make sense to accelerate it? Don't know. Why don't you take 15 seconds and explain to the guys what you're doing? We'll pass the mic over to you. Give them a perspective. And I'm encouraging we do this just as an example, and we can have a discussion.
All right, so we're in the middle of a brand transition from our old brand Nut and Ordinary, and we're moving everything over to Shires. We have old ravioli bags that are sitting in a warehouse right now with the Nut and Ordinary branding on it. It's probably about 10 pallets worth of product. So if that's something that you want to talk about outside of this, I'd love to see if there's something that we could work out. But we also have some packaging for our cheese line as well. That we wouldn't know what we have left till the end of the year.
Can I just answer the question more generically? We can talk specifically about we do that kind of stuff all the time. The story I'll share is, it's big CPG and it's like dated 10 years ago. So just, and I'll say, what I'll say is if we ever do something like that with anybody in the room, the story doesn't get retold. I'll start with that, but I'm going to use a 10-year-old story back at Kraft Heinz. And we got in front of a bunch of brand managers for the same reason because they own all their own P&Ls, packaging, ingredients. And a couple of opportunities came up. One, glass jars moving to PET. Hey, could you fill these glass jars? We ended up doing a really, really big deal on the glass jars. And then same thing, another brand manager said, hey, we've got all these, it was ingredients. I think it was mushrooms, portobello mushrooms at the time that they had left over from a flavor profile that failed. Well, they took the portobello mushrooms and the glass jars, they married them up and they ran that inventory just for a grocery outlet. And I think what they did just behind the financial curtain was they said, hey, the jars we've got them on the books at X, we've got the mushrooms at X. They wrote them down probably to zero or nearly zero. And then they sort of justified running them to offset whatever overhead. But I don't know how they financially engineered or justified it for them, but it made sense for them to get the jars and the ingredients off the book. And they sold it to us at a price where we were able to show value to the customer.
Go ahead. You speak up, I'll repeat. Let me just repeat for those folks, there are some online. Karine asked, if you're basically a regional brand and you're not in the grocery outlet markets, does the same premise of needing to be at a certain price hold?
Good question. I mean, there's creative ways of, we can get into specifics, but like we'll look at Thrive a lot of times for a comp. So I think we just kind of go, a lot of times the buyers will ask, where do you currently have distribution? And they're asking it for two reasons. They want to set the mark on where do we need to look at to show value? And then also maybe it's a conversation about how do we protect the business that you already have.
And by the way, if anybody online has questions, you can submit them and I can see the Q&As here. We have a question over here. You can just speak up. All right, go ahead.
All right, so we have a refrigerated alcoholic beverage that's in a pack type we no longer sell. We've been told by your alcohol buyer that she has access to the two much bigger brands that aren't refrigerated. Why does she need us? Well, we have a better product. We have an amazing find for your consumers. Like seriously, we'll easily sell it to you for 40% discount. Yeah. So how do we convince you that you need all this product?
All right. First of all, put your hand out. This is the buyer when I get back to the office. Yeah, I don't know all the specifics, but that shouldn't be the answer. Certainly, if we can show value and it's an on-trend brand, we're interested. You may not always like the price that we're going to offer or the retail that we think we need to get to for the velocity, but no is generally not our answer. I always like to say, we'd rather have you say no. That doesn't work for us versus us just say.
I'm sure we can handle the price.
Okay. And it's interesting. I'd love to have the conversation later. Alcoholic, refrigerated. Love kombucha, by the way.
Can I just ask, so we're in like the shipping hub of mid-Maine and it's so easy to ship from there. So how do you handle the distribution and is there additional stickering? Another retailer required us to sticker the package for them. So how does the
and in the context, can you also address pickup versus delivery?
Yeah, great.
Exactly.
Great. Okay. Oh, I heard that's a great shipping lane. I think the freight's down to like $14,000 now. Yeah. Yeah, we like to say we've got national reach, right? We're buying products certainly from Florida. We're buying product from Maine. We're buying product from Arizona, and certainly in the Northwest. Maine's tougher for sure. We look at it again. We go retail backwards. Where do we need to be to move the velocity of whatever you have? A lot of time, code date and quantity comes into play. Doing that math problem, and then we just work the math backwards. So it's going to cost somebody freight to get it there, whether it's in the cost of goods or I'm picking it up, so I'm going to offer you a lower price. it can be done, but it's kind of the mechanics of paying freight, which has been painful lately, for sure. And Andy asked me to address just additionally, do we pick up or do we, does product get delivered to us? We do both. I would say today, the majority of it is delivered. I think mostly because CPG prefers it that way, but it's a muscle we want to develop. We'd like to be picking up more product. It's tough, as you guys know, especially smaller quantities and really far off places, but stickering we do a lot of. So we have what we call reconditioning facilities in every one of our dry facilities. And so we do a lot of inventory that was intended to be sold in Mexico or Canada or overseas. We bring it in, we put the right nutritional label on it. We just did for a big CPG mayonnaise company, literally net weight, nutritional panel, the whole bit. You looked at that product, you could not tell it had been stickered, but we were able to take inventory that was probably going to get dumped, quite honestly, if we didn't sticker it and resell it to customers. So we do a lot of that. I'm sorry? No, we'll build it into the offer. I mean, it's going to cost us whatever we'll probably share that with you a lot of times. Hey, here's what's going to cost us for labor, a sticker. Are you okay with this sticker? And certainly it comes off of the offer for the goods.
But specifically, you don't put price stickers on.
No, we do not. Sorry. Thank you. No. No. We would say no.
A little bit about, is 5 pallets interesting? Probably not. What generalities should people think about?
Yeah, we say no deals too big or too small. Smaller ones with geography are more challenging, but we do them. And I would say, yeah, 5 and 10 pallet deals, they're definitely interesting to us, especially if they're in our geography, but don't assume that we're not interested. We love the challenge of, can we get those 5 pallets out of Maine and make it make sense, right? We have a dry facility in Pennsylvania now, which is helping with the northeast part of the country.
Sure. Let me repeat the question for those that couldn't hear. She's working on a yogurt launch this summer, and keep me honest, the MOQs are likely to drive her to have excess product. Will they work on it in advance? And by the way, I think, how many people here have sold short code or excess inventory to grocery outlet? Has anybody done it where it was before you actually filled or made the product? All right, I think that's the most important thing I want this group to take.
Yeah, so if you're paying attention closely to the slides and or the video, there was at least a couple yogurt brands that we did that with early in their growth cycle. So the answer is yes. And it's funny, some categories are more difficult than others. I know we've done it in yogurt.
But I think the idea of working on it before the product is filled, if we can get a mic to the back corner, please. There's an entrepreneur that unfortunately couldn't be here with a loss in the family today. She's got $50,000 worth of packaging and trying to figure out what to do with it. And I said, she needs to talk to Paul and his team before you fill it, because she's got 3 options of how she could configure it, figure out what it's worth. Question in the back?
Yeah, hi.
Hang on a second.
Just add something that early is better. If you're thinking it, call us, right? Doesn't cost anything. We'll spend 15 minutes. We'll look at the brand. We'll give you what our opinion is. We see thousands and thousands of offers over, the years, and you may like it, you may not, but at least it gives you a place marker for coming back to us. And earlier is always going to get you more value. So many entrepreneurs just wait and wait, and then they come to us last minute and they've got 45 days and they don't love the answer. So we always tell people, just go on the website, call Paul, reach out, and just try and get us to give you some sort of information early. And at least you have a place marker for where we're going to be.
Yeah, understanding what the value could be is really important. Remember the cash discussion we had in the morning. In the back?
Hi, so I'm Ross from GOE Wellness, and a lot of the stuff you said is is very applicable to us. Because we had to do a huge MOQ in terms of our runs with our manufacturers. And we're going live in 600 stores in Europe. But we have a lot of excess stock because they wanted their own type of packaging, language focused packaging, etc. And we've had a lot of good response in the US. So we're setting up our US establishment right now. But do you work with international brands and help them to bring their excess stock to the US? Because we're very focused in hemp seeds products, which is the next question. Do you do hemp? And we know that, for example, the West Coast for us is a huge opportunity.
So first question, yes, we are interested in hemp and we sell hemp products today. Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, I think Eric keeps saying this and I would agree. Just I think we'd like to give it a try. I'm not sure I have a whole lot of examples about bringing excess inventory from Europe to the US. It's probably, I'm trying to think of examples, probably suppliers have been the importer on record. They've brought it here and then we've done business with them. So there's probably a way for sure.
While we're getting to the next question, feel free to put up hands. There's one over here. Are there any categories that are completely out of bounds for you? All right, the answer is no for those folks online. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Paul and Eric. We've been, we're not a huge brand, but we've been over the years growing fast. If you aren't talking to these guys, talk to them. When we've had new package, when we've changed packaging, we go straight to them. When we have new product and we change any recipes or anything, we go straight to them. They are fantastic to work with, incredible negotiators, but they're, I need to take a lesson. I'd like 101 on negotiating there, but use them because they're fantastic for, if you're a small brand like we are and you're growing, you're always changing packaging, you're always launching new products, you're always doing all those things that are in growth. And they are a relief valve that you can move that inventory to. So.
Thank you, Lance. Question over here. Feel free to just speak up. I'll repeat it for the group. So the question was, as an independent operator, how much of the product selection is given to them versus their choices, et cetera?
Great question. And thank you for the compliments. So Eric shared, we go through like 120,000 unique SKUs over the course of a year, 6,500 SKUs at a time. The stores pull, they order, I think it's like 70% of what gets sold to the store versus a push, because there's no planogram. So it's a little bit of they're organizing chaos on a daily basis. We love the autonomy of them merchandising and kind of curating their own assortment in their own stores. They do too. At the end of the day, they all end up with pretty much the same assortment, a little bit of everything, just in different quantities and different end caps built just based on the local community. So we don't force it. We just, it's like the hard sell. We want them to want to carry all of the brands in their stores. The question was, what's the lead time from the time you present product to maybe product hitting the shelf? And again, I'd go back to speed is one of the most important tenets of the buying merchandising groups. Just we have to have speed, whether it's reaction or speed to market. Response times 24 hours, POs 24 to 48 hours. A lot of times it's up to how quickly can you get the truck on the road. Our perishable business, I'd say, and I'll use yogurt because it's probably the fastest example. Offer today, PO later today, or PO in the morning. If it's Monday, that product could be arriving at our warehouse Thursday or Friday of this week, and it would be selling in our stores by Monday. So it could be from phone call to shelf, 8 days. I mean, that's probably best case scenario, probably no more than 12 to 14 days on more of the dry side.
Hi, just another testimonial. I sold my first closeout to you, or short coated date, probably about 15 years ago. And our most recent one was, we met the buyer randomly at Expo East, and the stuff arrived last week at your warehouse. So just another testimonial, but could you talk a little bit about sort of how something might transition to a permanent item on your shelf? Is that only big CPG brands, or could it be regional brands that you like on your shelf every day?
No, another great question. So for sure, I'll repeat the question. First of all, I said, are there any times where a closeout or excess can convert into everyday distribution? And the answer is it happens. There's more than a few examples in the store today. I think what happens typically on the excess side is sometimes we'll discover like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how well this brand would do. And then we're calling you back saying, hey, or would you be interested? And there's this conversation back and forth about at what price would it work for both of us? The advantage we have is just purely think about the efficiency of not going through a third party. And I'm going to use, I don't want to say anything disparaging about anybody, but just the cost of going through Unify or KeyHe versus going through a retailer that owns and operates their own facilities. There is no cost to doing business with us. The cost is very, very clean. You agree on a price, that's what you get paid on time. There's no other silly stuff going on. It's just a nice, clean, simple, good old fashioned retailing 101. So you have that, you figure out whatever your delta is to get to other retailers' shelf, what that margin is, just distribution margin, and then think about what the margin might be on the shelf with various retailers. That often leaves enough room for us to show value and for you to manufacture a product and sell us everyday goods. Yeah, payment terms are usually net 120 days with a 5% discount. I'm just kidding. It's a joke, right? Yeah, I would say average terms are net 30, right? We have cash, so we love cash discounts. We love 2% 10 net 30, but we're flexible. I mean, every situation is just a little bit different.
Hey, I got a question right here.
All right, go ahead.
So my name's Cole. As Ryan mentioned, I run a food nonprofit based in New York that he's on the board of, and we work with 100 Better For You food and beverage brands across the country for in-kind donations. And this year, we're pacing to be at around 15 million in product donations by end of year. But I know there's a ceiling. There's a ceiling to how much excess inventory is out there. And I'm curious what you guys are thinking about with these major expansion plans, that share of opportunistic buy versus just traditional wholesale buy. Where do you see that ceiling? How much excess is out there? Because I feel it. I can see that there's that end run, that eventual end date of we've scooped it all up. What do you guys think?
I mean, having gone through, Eric knows, you've answered this question about 1,000 times. I think having gone through a couple of rounds of private equity, and everyone asks that question: when do you run out of run space? We think we're only about, we estimate this every year, we're probably about 18% of big CPG's share today. And the biggest players in this space are, think Big Lots or 99 Only, or, it gets really fractured after that, or fragmented. We know at some point, the next 20%, probably the quality isn't as good as the first 20%. You know that because you're in this business. So we just announced on our last quarterly call that we're just starting to develop exclusive brands. This is a year where we just finalized a strategy. We just hired a leader to lead that initiative, but it'll be really slow and really thoughtful, because at 1,000 stores or 1,500 stores, we may need to start augmenting, and we want to do it in a really unique and differentiated way.
One other thing I'd like the group to talk about briefly is on the NOSH side, on the inventory management side, the price is less of an issue in the market. On the everyday turn side, how do you help vendors to navigate, if you're below some of the market, the blowback from current retailers, et cetera? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. If you don't want us to advertise, we won't advertise. I think the only way, another retailer might see your brand is if they're shopping our stores. And I think retailers generally get it. There's a couple big retailers in the country that actually sell us their inventory. So far, I think it's just people understand our role in the business. I can't even think, I've been there 28 years and I can think of like 2 examples of where a retailer went to a supplier and said, hey, we want that off the shelf. So that's not a lot, 28 years, you know. I would say sometimes, but I would say that's not the norm.
Yeah, I had a question, Paul.
I can hear.
All right. So the question is around your exclusive brands that you just mentioned. Are you thinking manufacturers would do control brands just for you guys? Or are you thinking along the lines of private label like Aldi or Trader Joe's or something different?
Yeah, probably own brands that we own. Yeah.
What else, by the way? We've got a couple more minutes, probably 7 or 8 minutes. If anybody online has a question, I can see them here. What else? I saw another hand over there somewhere. No, maybe not.
Andy, I'll throw another
All right,
question out.
Kareem.
So I'm curious on the retail side of this is like, you know, retail is struggling as well. So is your corporate then helping retailers set up new locations? Because the sources and use issues for retailers is probably as challenging as it is for brands. So I'm just curious how, a little bit about how you're planning that scale.
Yeah, so our commitment is to grow our base, our store base at 10%. So if we're 450 stores today, we want to open up 45 stores and just kind of do the math. We've fallen a little bit short the last few years just with construction delays and supply chain delays on the construction side as well, but we'll get 25, 30 stores open this year. I think, and Eric, you can probably talk to this better than I can, but I don't think we see any problem finding sites or people that want to run the sites, and our business is incredibly healthy right now. I think you said it in the slide, just traffic count and our ability to push inflation to the register, but we're hitting on both cylinders right now. So those operators are really, owners are really, really healthy right now.
Yeah, it's a great question. We need operators, we need sites, we need product. Product, we've talked a lot about. Operators, we get about 25,000 inbounds a year to select about 100 that we'll put into training. So we've got a really robust flow of people coming in. And then sites has been a little bit more challenging, more from not signing the lease, but just getting them open. We look out across the population centers in the US and we've mapped 4,800 sites. You know, that might be a little bit pie in the sky, but that's the number we're using over the next 10, 20 years to go work against. We're in 7 states right now. Have a pretty good foothold in the West Coast, but we're going to start the East Coast pretty heavily. So
I'm going to be a little provocative here. I know Sarah's got another question, but we've got a couple more retailers on the stage tomorrow, which is the independent space and the co-op space. And I think there's some similarities and then there's some differences to the models overall. And this isn't so much a question as it is a statement. I think there's a real value for the brands in the room to be kind of understanding how they work differently with these different types of ownership structures. And those are one like yours. So do you have any words of advice for these brands on how that looks differently based on those other types of ownership models that are similar but slightly different?
yeah, my advice is create options. Don't go down one path because there are many options that can help you be profitable if that's your goal, move volume if that's your goal, move inventory if that's your goal, get your brand out there in front of eyeballs if that's your goal. Depending on what you're trying to do, think about, everyone has a game to play and we have the game that we like to play, and certainly welcome, you know, any of the free advice we're going to give you, and try us, right? Give us a shot and just develop options because you'll need them. You'll need all of those options at some point down the road as you're developing your brand and building a sustainable business. You may not choose us to be a strategic partner, but we'll probably be in your lives at some point. So.
I'll ask my question, but first a plug, Minnesota, real white space for what you guys are doing. Personally live in Minnesota. But in terms of when something is actually coded today, and you said you don't keep it on shelf, I just want to know what if you have partnerships in terms of donations, what that looks like. Is it you guys as a corporate taking that right off because it's consignment, or is the store itself?
So all of the stores have relationships with the local food banks or a charity that they can donate to. As a merchant, I always tell the stores, hey, if you're long on something, treat it as an opportunity. I mean, even if sometimes we had to buy last year, big one that we stubbed our toe in, I said, give it away, right? What a great way to delight a customer leaving the register. Give them a case of this particular beverage. Give it to them as a gift, or thank them for shopping our stores. So I think we still try to think like small entrepreneurial business owners. Our second generation founding family used to say, we out-chain the locals, but we out-local the chains. And I love that, just love that saying. So just nothing gets sold beyond the code date. It goes somewhere, hopefully. It does not go in the dumpster. That's something we try and avoid for a lot of reasons.
Terrific. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.